Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of the Elsa Kurt Show. Clay is not sitting with me today. I actually have my dear friend Dan Tracy is here, and this guy has such a long list of things that he does and is, and I could go down the whole list, but I'm going to shorten it. I'm going to say musician, producer, all around great guy. And so many more things. So Dan, first of all, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here with me.
Well, thanks for having me, Elsa. This is great.
Absolutely. So we have like a ton of stuff to get into and I'm so excited. So we're going to do this little intro super quick and then we're going to get right into it.
Sure.
I promised it was quick. It was a quick one. It's not the usual like 30-second one. So Dan, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's a nice fall day here in Tennessee, a little overcast, but it's beautiful.
Yeah. Right now, you know what? I don't even know what it's like outside right now. We've had so much rain, as you know. So Dan and I actually hail from the same area. We're both New Englanders. And you got to go somewhere especially cool. So are you in Nashville or outside of Nashville?
Well, I was in Nashville for quite a long time, and then I kind of got bumped out by all the McMansions that came into my neighborhood. I like a little separation where I live, and it was just getting crazy. I actually lived out near where Johnny Cash lived out by the lake, and it just got the farmers started selling out their land. It just happens out here because you can't make money farming sometimes, or people get older and their kids don't want to take over.
Right.
But anyway, they sell out to developers, and then here come all the McMansions, and all of a sudden our nice little place out by the lake was inundated. It was just crazy. So we moved farther out. I'm about 50 minutes outside of north of Nashville, which I love it out here.
Nice. Oh, yes. And I've been fortunate enough to see the pictures and videos of where you live. I won't disclose any of that information, but it is gorgeous. It looks like a beautiful just slice of heaven over there.
Yeah, we're really lucky. My wife and I drove by on a whim. Been looking for like 2 years for a farmhouse, and we came across this place, decided to take a drive out. It was nowhere where we thought it was going to be. And we came over the hill and looked at the view, and we were just, in awe of the beauty and just the serenity of this little spot. And we walked in, and I wrote her a check and said, "Get everybody out of my house." So that was kind of shocking to my wife because we didn't really chat about actually purchasing it on our way in.
You knew that was the place. Yeah. It was yours.
Yeah, well, you can build anything. And I like to
Right.
build. I'm handy. And I built the cabin that we're in right now with some friends and a couple of guys I hired. But yeah, you can't build scenery, and you can't build, where you're at. So,
Right.
special.
Yeah, that's so true. So we get to add that to your list of accomplishments. So it's a singer, songwriter, producer, drummer. I knew that was first. Drummer,
Oh, wow.
you can play the piano and of course guitar. And the reason why I say of course, I'm going to show everybody this picture first. How about that coolness right there? Now, correct me if I'm wrong. In this picture, you're on stage with this crew, right? Is that right?
That is correct.
So, tell me a little bit about how you got to working with Alan Parsons.
The Alan Parsons project was Alan and Eric Wolfson, the chief songwriter, and then they did hired musicians for many, many years, probably 60 musicians playing on all the stuff and different tours and that type of stuff. And we're his latest lineup that he's had, I think, for the last 13 or 14 years now.
Tour all around the world. Before we even talk about that, though, take me back to how this kid came from, a somewhat sleepy town, right?
Yeah.
New England town to traveling the world with a renowned band. So take me on this journey with you, if you will.
Sure. Well, I got the gene from my grandfather, is what I call it. It's just the musical thing. He could play lots of instruments by ear, and I had it right away from a young age. I would dabble around. I could instantly pick something up and play it and make music out of it. And from there, I was very lucky that I had some great mentors in elementary school. Neil Rinaldi, who you probably know, but he was my elementary school teacher. And, I think in fourth grade, he popped in and started his teaching career. And the cool part was, I mean, he recognized right away I had some talent, because I was playing like Simon and Garfunkel songs on the piano by ear. And he's like, "How are you able to do that?" And I said, "I don't know. I like doing it, And so he fostered that. He was great with me. And then, as fate would have it, a few years later, he got the job as, overseeing the whole music department at the high school. So eventually when I went through, middle school and all that, I showed up in high school, and there he was. And he absolutely transformed that music department from something that had once been kind of a second thought and very sleepy to this just powerhouse music department with a, killer jazz band. And then, of course, John Gianfrido came in and did this amazing choir and show choir. And it was just transforming for me. And I was always writing songs at that time too, and just didn't really have an outlet for them. Eventually, I'd make my way to New York City doing jingles, which are, you sing TV commercials, and I've done Cheerios and, Folgers Coffee, Diet Coke, just tons of them. And I met a lot of great people, session players and musicians, but really no songwriters. They would write jingles, but not songs. And the few that I had met in New York, it was more about an afternoon to hang out and read resumes. And I'm not that guy. I'm about the work. I like doing the work. And I just could never find a connection with somebody that was, as passionate about songwriting and the craft of songwriting as I was. And when I would mention Nashville to some of these people, they'd be like, "Nashville? It's hillbilly town." And I'm like, "You don't get it. Like, the best songwriters on the planet reside in this town. It's just got this amazing, amazing atmosphere for creating songs. And it's a really high bar, which I loved." But I had a friend that lived here, Donald Main, and he's actually from Springfield, Mass. And he had a longtime band. I think they're still going, called the Saints. Okay. And they were just an incredible live party band. But Donald had moved down here, and I wanted to check it out. So there was one morning I got up very early because I was going to take the train into New York City to do a jingle, and my garage door wouldn't open, and I couldn't figure out why. And there was 6 feet of snow on it, and I was like, this is silly. So, and I was out the money that day, of course, because you can't make it. So right. I said, let me just go down and check it out. So I flew down for a week to try Nashville out. And I'm not even kidding you, the waiters and waitresses that I were meeting were songwriters and players. They were all there risking it all, and I sold everything I had, every stitch of gear. I sold my favorite guitar that I had that I was making money with all through the 80s. I've since got it back. I'll put it on my lap here in a little bit, but
that's a great story. Yeah.
I sold everything and just packed the car, and we had a 1-year-old, and God bless my wife that she thought, let's give it a shot. She's an adventurer like me and a little crazy like me. So we like risk. So we came out here and gave it a shot, and just, at first it was hard to find my footing because I thought, man, I don't really play any of this chicken picking stuff, but I like the songs that they're writing, So it just takes a while. They call it a 10-year town. And that's pretty much what it was. About maybe 6 or 7 years, I started going out in the clubs here and singing the rock stuff that I do. I've got this high tenor voice, so I can do the Boston and Journey and all that. And I thought, nobody's going to come out to this. And then people started showing up, and some of the people showing up were these pro players that were out on tour and doing sessions. Next thing I know, hey, do you sing any background vocals? And I do the whole harmony arrangement thing. I came up on the Carpenters and all that stuff. So I'm really into the harmony thing. So with technology, I can sing all the parts, and I have sung all the parts on lots of different records, my own as well as some other big records that are out there. I started kind of making a name for myself doing that, and then it just kind of expanded. And you could play guitar, so then I started doing that stuff. Eventually, I had a friend call me up and say, I have a client, and he needs some help with a piece of gear, and you know what this piece of gear is. And I said, I really can't. I'm swamped for like the next 2 weeks. And I said, who is it? And he said, it's Alan Parsons. And I said, I'm going to clear my plate, because I was a big fan, right? Not only of his music, but also, I really loved the stuff he did with Floyd and the Beatles and all that stuff, you know. And I knew all about him and the other stuff, Pilot, Al Stewart, just a ton of records that I had grown up on. And he was kind of like the, you know, the mysterious wizard behind all the stuff, you know. And so I flew out there and I fixed his piece of gear pretty much and got it working a little better than what it was working for his situation. So it'd be easier for him to operate on stage and be kind of, I call it stupid proof, you know, no slight on him or anybody else. I just made it so he couldn't mess it up. Right.
Right.
And then he appreciated that. So I watched the show and I kind of kept my distance. And later on during the night, we were having dinner after the show and I was the far end of the table because I just saw everybody on him. And I was just like, this poor guy, you know. And finally he came down my end of the table at the end of the night and he goes, what's your deal? You know, the very last thing you say to a guy like that is, well, I play guitar and I write songs. You know? So I just said, you know, I live in Nashville and I play like everybody else. You know, we kind of giggled about that. And he goes, what did you think of the show? And I said, it was good, you know. And he goes, no, what did you think of the show? And I said, well, I think your music is deserving of better audio quality. And he went, really? And I said, yeah, and lighting too. I said, because when I think of you, I think of your connection with Pink Floyd and just an amazing show. And I said, it just the level didn't match what was going on with the band and everything. And I was able to kind of walk into that because earlier in the day, there was a problem with the sound system and I just could not shut my mouth about it. And the sound guy was just sitting there with a dead stare as there was this big through the system, and he's letting them sound check through it. So I finally went over and said, you're going to fix that, right? I said, please tell me you're not going to put the father of high fidelity audio through that rat's nest, you know? And of course, everybody looked at me like, whoa, stay in your lane. And he's like, well, you know, it's the monitors. I said, no, I know it's this piece of gear. It's this processor. I pointed right at it. And he goes, how do you know? And I said, there's a little flickering light that's on there. That's a bad chip, you know? So anyway, I proved it to him by disconnecting it and bypassing it. And suddenly it was super clean. So I know that a couple other guys on the band and crew saw that and said something to Alan. Now they probably said, this guy's a smart aleck and, you know, doesn't mind his business. But at the end of the day, Alan probably thought, you know what? He fixed it. Right. Right. So I think that allowed me to be honest with Alan. And he kind of pushed me too. I was quiet. He said, no, really, tell me what you're thinking. You know, he said, how do I fix it? And I said, well, let me bring some guys in, you know. So I brought in with Brent, my friend Brent knew him as well. Martin Fry, who was working for Journey and some other bands, and he was a game changer in that. And then we had gotten back this guy Martin Thomas, who's absolutely amazing on lighting, and it made a huge difference. From there, Alan asked me if I wanted to stay on, and I said I don't really do the crew thing, you know. I said, what would I do? He said, you're going to do that. Just make sure you know there's a bar, fix things. So I did. I was kind of a crew guy. I was the stage manager for like a year and a half or something. And as luck would have it, you know, the guys knew I played, but I always tried to be kind of a little low key about it because I could sense a couple of jealous bones. Right. Sure. So, and I was trying to be respectful, but, you know, I'm checking guitars. I'm going to play the guitar and people would turn around and be like, you know, wow, you can play a little bit. And then, of course, I played during sound check if somebody didn't show up and Alan was like, can you play all these parts? And I said, if I have to, in a pinch, you know.
Yeah. And, okay.
Yeah. Well, no, I just knew that if somebody got sick, it was going to be a problem, and that did happen a couple times actually. Wow. But eventually, he heard me arranging the background vocals. There were parts missing, and I am a stickler. I have kind of photographic musical memory. So if I hear something on the radio and something is off, it drives me absolutely bananas. Right? It's like a crooked picture. Sure. So I was saying, no, that part doesn't exist. Here's the part and this kind of thing. And we'd start singing it and I would sing the missing part. And Alan heard it from down the hall. And he was like, what is that? Are you singing with them? I said, yeah. And he knew, you know, that's the part that was missing. And he's got great ears too. So he eventually one day, it was really weird. I heard him on the thing. He said, he told the sound man, get Dan a microphone off stage. And I started singing with the band off stage, all these harmony parts. Eventually it just got so silly that we talked about it and he goes, you know what, this looks ridiculous. And people would see me off there going, what's the deal? Is he's, you know, it just looked a little weird. So sure. He called me one day. I was actually doing a wedding with my wedding band and he's like, I'd like you in the band. And I go, what would you like me to do? And he's like, all of it. If you have, guitar, if there's some keyboards, whatever, the vocal thing. He goes, I'd like all of it. And, I said, I really don't want to create some waves here, but I know there's going to be some waves. And he said, maybe. He said, maybe, but that's my call. And so I said, let me think about it for a night. And the next day, my wife, of course, was like, what are you, crazy? Tell him yes. And next day I told him yes. And we kept it quiet a little bit. We went out, we were playing somewhere in Canada. And then he broke the news to the band, and they all kind of pigpiled on me, all except for one guy who's no longer with us. But that's okay.
Yeah.
I understand the feelings and the feeling insecure a little bit. That's okay. I think he made his own bed there. It was sad. I actually felt really bad about it. Not really good, like people would expect.
Right.
But, eventually we all kind of found our footing in this band. And the replacement that we got just shot us into the ionosphere, as far as I'm concerned, as far as what we sounded like and played like as a band. And it still has this amazing chemistry after, I think, 13 years with him now.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And the audiences that you guys draw, I've seen, I should have put some up here too. I should have swiped them from you. The pictures that you've shown of, it's like the back of the band looking out at the crowd, and they're just, stadiums. It's just incredible to see. And it must be so incredible to be up on that stage. Does it ever get like, whatever, or do you still get that thrill every time?
No, definitely. I will say this, definitely when the crowd reacts, it drives your adrenaline. I got to tell you though, mostly when we play these songs is what really drives my adrenaline. The songs are great. I mean, they stand the test of time, and we've got the right lineup to play them. But yeah, some of these places, we played Burning Man a couple of years ago. We were the first band to ever play there. If you can believe that, you'd think that place would have bands all the time. Well, they don't, because they're out in the middle of nowhere. So it's generators. And
oh, right.
I mean,
of course,
it was like playing on the moon. Right. It was like playing on the moon. I had, my Kemper here is a very expensive piece of gear. Let me see if I can turn this thing. Yeah. And I was so worried about it. And so I had it covered up in plastic, and pardon my hands there. And there's just dust everywhere. But as far as you could see out into this desert, were people holding, LED lights. It was absolutely crazy. And we've played, 60,000 people with, I think we were double heading with Deep Purple. We've done a couple of really memorable shows. Israel, a couple of times with the orchestra. We play a lot of orchestra shows, which is nice.
Wow. Yeah, that sound has to be so huge, right? I mean, just to be present, like, even if, God forbid, you're not an Alan Parsons Project fan, just to be in that room with that monstrously huge, beautiful sound, it just has to be so epic. One of these days, Dan, I'm getting to a show. One of these days, I will get to a show.
We'd love to have you.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. What a story, what a journey, and what an unbelievable gift you have, or numerous gifts. I mean, you won't call yourself this, but I'm calling this, you're a musical genius, really. I mean, that's just incredible. I know you're gonna, I know you're humble. So like I said, I know Dan on a personal level, and I can tell you, and I'll tell everybody, we met through a mutual friend, our friend Kevin. And when Kevin told me about you, let me tell you what Kevin said about you. He said, you will never meet a kinder, nicer, more humble, giving, compassionate, good guy than Dan Tracy. And I'm like, well, I'm sold. That was easy,
sweet.
And because, I think, like I said, we met through him, through social media. And, I'm pretty sure I probably was like, what's this guy all about? What's his deal? And he's like, no, it's all good. It's good. He's good. And better than good. You're just truly sincerely a good guy. I want to brag on you a little bit more to tell everybody just how good you are. I hope you can. I'm either going to make your head explode with ego, or just make you sink in your seat in embarrassment. But as some of you may know or may not know, I'm an author. I write books, and I had a series going. And in one of the books, my character was a singer-songwriter. Well, guess what? I'm not musical. I sing along, but I shouldn't. And I needed my character to be writing a song. And I was like, oh my God, I have no idea if this is even like I don't know what this is, if this is even what a song looks like when you write it. And so I said to Dan, I sent him a message. I said, Dan, I'm so sorry to bother you. You know, I hope you don't mind, but this is what I've got going on. And Dan's like, okay, give me a minute. And like literally a minute later, Dan has a whole song. Dan wrote a whole song for my character, a legit actual song. It is gorgeous. And it's in my book. Like that's the most exciting for me. That was probably one of the most exciting things that happened in my little book writing process, that you first of all, that you took the time to even look at what I wrote me, and just out of the goodness of his heart. And if that wasn't enough, Dan, when I first started doing my show, my podcast, he heard my cheesy, lame little intro music that I had going on, and Dan was like, hang on, we got to make this better. We got to do this right. He wrote me the most beautiful, perfect intro for my show. And then like a dum-dum, I ended up changing the name of the show.
Well, that's okay. I can write another. That's the beauty of that.
You're so great. Oh my God. But and you do these things, out of pure goodness and kindness. And it blows me away that the things that you do. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not done. He did one more thing that is, I can't, I mean, the whole show is going to be taken up by me telling you all the things that Dan has done.
Okay.
Okay. One last thing, I promise.
All right.
Last thing I have to tell you guys that Dan did. My husband, who's in law enforcement, also on the side is in a band. He plays drums, and he started very late in life, and it's been a wonderful, fun, exciting, cool journey. And when Dan found this out, Dan's a huge law enforcement and military supporter, and we definitely want to talk about that for a moment. Dan had a snare drum, right?
Yeah.
It's a snare drum. Okay. You know me. Designed for him with the thin blue line. It's for law enforcement, and it is absolutely stunning. And again, goodness of his heart, love of law enforcement and military and all of these things. And I mean, just wow. And that thing is a treasure. That is like a treasured piece of equipment.
Well, thank
art.
you. It
Thank
was an
you.
honor to give that to him. And Kevin, our friend Kevin, played a part in that, because I said, this thing needs a badge. So he had called up and through his connections got a badge sent to me. I think it's your husband's badge number, correct?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I had it put on I put it on the snare drum. And then what I thought was cool is that we alternated the lug nuts on the snare, and they alternate between red and blue.
So beautiful.
Which I thought was neat. But yeah, it was an honor to give that to him. He puts himself out there every day, not just physically, and but that's got to be a soul drainer to do that kind of work. So just like to show those people appreciation with what little I can offer.
Oh, you do so much. Just your appreciation alone is so gratifying, and you do much more than that. And I know that. Tell me, where did your love and appreciation come from? Do you have like a family history with either law enforcement or military? Because I know it's both for you. It's law enforcement, military. You love America, and we've got something to talk about with that too in a minute.
Sure.
But tell me a little bit about that.
Well, my dad was in the Navy for many years. And most of the other kids were born in Annapolis, Maryland. I was not. I was born in Hartford, Connecticut, which is why we settled in Windsor Locks. So that's at the end of his military career. But I remember as a kid kind of, sitting around the dinner table and being a little peace-loving kid there in the 70s and kind of arguing with my pop about things that were going on policy-wise, with Russia and different things. And he would lay it out and tell me like it really was. And it wasn't until I got older and had kids, I was like, damn, he was dead on in a lot of this stuff. And then, of course, we have our friend that I went to high school with, and his parents coached my soccer team many years, I think 3-4 years playing soccer with him. And he was an amazing athlete, an amazing guy. But John Chapman, who is a recipient of the Medal of Honor posthumously, was killed in Afghanistan right after we kind of got in there after 9/11. And so that was All right. That was a profound moment for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that gets you. It's not something you forget, and you don't forget what was given up and lost. And you got me too. We're both. It's okay. We're both going. That's okay. And if we didn't, I feel like we would lose part of our humanity, right? If it didn't hit you in your heart. But yeah, and just another thing to love about you, Dan, that your heart is so huge and it's so full of the right things. It's such. I gotta tell you, it's just such an honor to know you. It really is.
Oh, well, thank you. You as well. You as well. Well,
Thank
you're
you.
out there every day on your show, hitting the right buttons and educating people and letting them know what's really going on and that they're not alone. I think
I appreciate that.
a lot of
I
people
love it.
think they're
It's that
alone.
same, yeah, it's that same passion and love for this country, and the people who defend it, and the people who are, risking their lives and losing their lives, and the ultimate sacrifice, as we always hear, but when it hits home, it's totally different. I wanted that nicely brings us into another thing I want to talk about that you've been working on. So along with your songwriting and instrument playing and band traveling and all the things that you're doing, you're also a producer, and you got involved with my recent interviewee, thanks to you, of course, Mason Douglas, and you guys, and you'll tell us story, then I'm going to do it right now. But you guys came up with this song, and it's more than a song; it's a movement too, called "I Miss America." Tell me a little bit about that, and there it is, and how that came about.
Okay, so I did not. First of all, I did not write the song, which is,
Okay.
and I'll explain how this happened. So a friend of mine, Clarence J, he had a viral hit and pretty much changed the industry. With this song called Fridays, Got to Get Down on Fridays with Rebecca Black.
I
It was
know
about 10
exactly the
years
song.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a cool little song. You either love it or hate it, right? But that's what catapulted this tune onto the scene. And it forced Billboard to recognize streaming. So it was actually like a very historic moment for him. And he's done quite well with that song. But I got to know him, and he's just a fantastic guy, a great producer who I respect greatly. Just watching him work, we got to work together, and I was like, man, you're good at this. You're really good at this. And being a producer is a completely different skill set and very difficult to explain to people that really don't understand kind of what a producer does. They think they sit in a chair and say yes or no, but you basically have to orchestrate the whole song, the sounds, how it's put together, the arrangement, the vocal takes, everything. You got to oversee it, what it sounds like. Anyhow, he played me a song in his car, and I was listening for songs for another guy that I was producing. And he played me this I Miss America song, and I was like, man, it just really resonated with me and what was going on in the country. And I know I'm not alone in that. And the singer was great too. I'm like, who's the singer? He's like, he's the co-writer of the song, and he wrote We the People for Kid Rock. And I was like, man, I'd love to do this song. And I was talking to my artist about it, and we ran down that road a little bit, but it just wasn't a match for him. And he was afraid to do and say anything politically. And I get that. Mm-hmm. And, quite honestly, if push come to shove on the interviews and stuff, he would have folded up like a cheap suit, and we needed somebody who has it together and has some life experience and could speak to people about what this message is and what it's really about. So we decided, I got my partner, Gary Becker. We have a company together called Ghost Entertainment. Gary used to own Pace Concerts in Houston, which was a huge, very highly respected concert production and promotion company in Houston, Texas. I mean, they started out having Evel Knievel, that way back then kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and he's a wonderful guy. And he just totally got the message. And like I did, he's like, what? Let's use Mason. Let's run with Mason, and here we are. We got billboards out around town, everything.
That's so awesome. And the song is so great. And if the song isn't good enough, you got to watch the video. And oh, what a surprise. I have it right here. So let's watch the video. Nice. Such a great video. And then you can give us some of those behind the scenes things that I think that I know, but you can fill us in on it.
Sure.
So here's the video, guys.
Enjoy it.
The Sunday Dinner Show.
We used to be John Wayne and James Dean, from sea to shining sea. We used to be baseball and apple pie, bringing on the American dream. We used to be Rockwell and rock and roll, standing up for the stars and stripes. We used to be, oh say, can you see, hand on our hearts with pride. But a new generation dividing the nation is hating and breaking what made it great and trying to fake it and take it on over to the extreme, thinking freedom is free. If only they could see the way it used to be. I miss the old days when we came together and we'd all say, let's make it better. But that train jumped the track, let's bring our country back home. Sweet home of the brave and the bold, yeah, she's something to save. I miss her open arms, I miss her hope and love, but most of all, man, I miss America. We used to be the golden ring, the ivory tower, standing tall with the backbone. We used to be first world superpower. Now they're laughing all the way back home. It was essential to presidential, was consequential for the century, turned into a crash and a burn. And then the truth was buried by who's red, who's white, who's blue. I don't give a damn to you. I miss the old days when we came together and we'd all say, let's make it better. But that train jumped the track, let's bring our country back home. Sweet home of the brave and the bold, yeah, she's something to save. I miss her open arms, I miss her hope and love, but most of all, man, I miss America. How far we fallen, y'all believing we're ballin', while they're pressing all the voices and choices all in the name of tolerance. This isn't the way to be living, and now we're driven on a mission to cancel division. Man, I miss the old days of waving to your neighbor, hello, hey, that ain't the way we're playing. The way the odds are stacked, gotta take our country back. Something worth saving. I miss her open arms, I miss her hope and love, but most of all, man, I miss America. Yeah, man, I miss America. Man, I miss America.
That was so good. That is so good. It made me laugh. It made me smile, made me sad, and it actually got me a little teary. The picture got me there. So take us behind the scenes of that a little bit, if you will.
Sure. We've been knocking around the idea for a video, and at first we had like a parade we were going to do down here in my little small town. It's a very picturesque, older, historic town that you see on a lot of the Hallmark movies. So we were going to do this big ornate thing and maybe have a boxing match and stuff. And aside from the cost of that, it was just a huge undertaking, getting extras, permits, all that stuff. Right. And we said, well, how can we do something on a little cheaper budget and still have the impact? And our director, John, and I were talking, and we're like, all right, what is this at its core? What's going on in America? What are people missing? What's going on? And we both came up with the dinner table. You can't even go to the dinner table anymore and talk to your in-laws or your siblings, for that matter. Right. And people are, so divided. So I said, we should totally just spoof on each person. You got the MAGA bro, you got the offended, woke sister, and all this stuff. And the kid that's stuck in virtual reality and always on his tablet. I mean, I have that person in my family, Mm-hmm. So I think, we thought it would resonate with everybody. And I knew Victoria through our PR agent.
Love her.
Yeah, and we just thought it would be a good match because, the comedy aspect and just to keep it light and a little jovial. So that's where we were headed with that.
That's so cool. So cool and so good. And Mason's such a great guy. I love talking
Yeah.
with him. And I thank you also for that, of course. You put us together
Sure.
and said, I think you'll like talking with him and hearing what he has to say. And of course, talking about this new release and everything. And boy, I mean, it hits home. It hits you right in the heart because, I think everybody can agree that we are not where we should be as a country. We are more divided than ever, and I think even people that are on the opposite side of the things that I believe, or maybe the things that you believe, I think they can also say, I just miss it. I just miss when we could, all get along and not everything be about politics and
Oh my gosh.
right?
Race,
I mean,
everything
race
about race,
and yeah, race
Yeah.
and social issues and all
Yeah.
of the things. I mean, there was a time where, just average Americans did not care. I don't care. I don't care about the, and I think most of us can say this right now, obviously not all because it's what we're all fighting about constantly. I don't care about the color of your skin. I don't care what religious beliefs you have. I don't care what you decide your gender is, whether I agree with
Right.
you or not. All irrelevant. All I care, just be a good person. Just be kind, just be
Absolutely.
compassionate.
Yeah.
Just, leave it alone. Leave it alone.
Right.
I can easily say, there's a lot of things that I strongly vehemently disagree with, but I don't feel the need to get in anybody's face about it who feels
Right.
differently than I do. Like we just need to agree to disagree sometimes and be on our separate sides if need be, but you can do that without being mean,
Right. I mean, it used to be we could go have a beer and
Right.
chat about stuff and then laugh it off. And
Yeah.
now that's not the case. I mean, people are
No.
afraid to say anything anymore, and it's really sad because if we're not talking to each other, you can't fix things, right?
Right. Right.
And you can't understand other people's experiences either. I mean, you
Yeah.
and I grew up in the same town, and the
Mhm.
beauty of our little town, which I will say was mostly white. We had some families of color in the town,
Mhm.
but we also had a huge diverse of immigrants that came in because we live in a defense industry, and they were recruiting the best and the brightest. They didn't care,
Right.
if they were Italian or Polish or whatever. Everybody
Mhm.
kind of moved into this area. So it was just odd to me when I started hearing things about discrimination, because I was like, gosh, we had so many crazy names and so many letters and vowels and in 26 letter last names, and
Right.
we knew how to say them all, and they were
Yeah.
all great people. So it was just how we came up.
Yep.
And then of course we both got older. Most people get older, and most people travel a little bit. In my case,
Mhm.
I traveled a lot all over the world. And
Right.
this notion of America is not respected is complete crap. I just want to
Mm.
say that right now. Complete crap. Okay. We are respected, and we are still the shining beacon on the hill. People still are climbing walls to get here. Okay. You see anybody
Right.
climbing a wall to get into Russia? They're not.
Best point ever made right there, really.
Yeah, and we have
Yep.
scars. Look, the country, we're only 200 years old. We're not thousands of years old like these other countries. And
Sure.
let's take a peek at what's happening right now in the landscape
Right.
across the
Yeah.
world. Still tons of fighting with 2,000-year-old countries. They're not
Right.
working it out. We are really progressing and trying to work some stuff out. And yes, there's
Mhm.
scars and bumps and some history we don't like looking at sometimes. But
Right.
you know what? We've made everything better for most people. Most people are living
Yep.
way better than their generation before them, whether
Right.
you came from poverty or slavery or
Mhm.
or whatever. And every ethnicity has faced that, by the way, in different
Yes.
parts of the world. So I think with our scars and all, again, we're still the greatest thing going out
Mhm.
there. I remember
Yes.
real quick being on a train in Germany, and we were going from Germany to Italy, I believe, to play a show. And this guy had kind of slinked into the bar car where we had it kind of quadranted off for us. And
Yeah.
you know, it was, I think he was a Nigerian guy, as I remember the conversation. And they tried to boot him out because it, you know, it's supposed to be, you know, just the band and all this stuff.
Mm.
And he was just smiling the whole time. I said, man, hang out, come have a drink with me. You know, I just love talking to people and figuring out where they're from. And the first thing out of this guy's mouth is he goes, I am dying to come to America and
Mm.
start a business. That was
Wow.
his whole thing. He says, I can't do it here. I can't do it in
Mhm.
Nigeria. You know, and
Right.
you just don't realize until you get out and meet people. They're still
Yep.
really
You're
dying to get over here.
Yeah, well, you're so right. And, this has not ceased to be the land of opportunity. It is still, and I pray that it always will be the land of opportunity. So, yeah, like you said, yes, we have poverty. Yes, we have people in circumstances that, are not good, and things happen, all these things, but it's still, everyone has the opportunity to succeed here. And it's not just the people who are born here and who, live here.
Right.
It's the people who come here through the proper channels would be ideal, and do it the hard way, like my grandparents and parents
Right.
did. They did it the hard way, they did it the right way, and they love this. That's where I learned my love of country, and I love that little bit of irony of it always, that I learned my love of America through my immigrant grandparents,
Right.
who understood and saw the opportunity and the gift that this amount of freedom that we have. And, it's so taken for granted now and disregarded. And, what a blessing for you to have this external view of it all, and to have traveled and to meet people where so many of us really don't, myself included. I don't get out of my bubble. I go to Florida because that's where my grandbabies are. That's it. That's all I'm doing for
Yeah.
years to come now. And that's totally fine. But yeah, you do get this bubble view of what's going on in the world. And of course, you got the echo chambers of people just repeating back the same things to each other.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important that we get to hear from people like you who have been around the world and do speak to other people from other countries, and you get a great perspective on everything, and bring that back here. So thank you for doing that, because
Sure.
it's needed.
Well, it's a learning experience, right?
Right.
That's part of it. You got to listen. Got to
Yes,
listen to
yes,
folks. Yeah.
absolutely. And I hope people will listen to I Miss America and really listen to those lyrics. Really take a good listen, and put them in your heart. And it's such a, and besides all the deep stuff, it's such a catchy song. Like, it's so catchy.
Yeah, it is.
I
It's
forgot.
very
Now I can see you, when I put a video up, guys, we go like in a little waiting room, so we just have little boxes, our cameras are there. And that's usually when we're taking sips of our coffee, or, coughing if we need to cough or do whatever. And, I'm sitting back and dancing along, and I'm like, oh wait, I think Dan can see me.
I couldn't.
Better
I
act
saw the
right over
video.
here.
That's great.
It's
Yeah, I
better
mean,
than
that's
like,
what grabbed me first when I heard the song. I was like, man,
yeah,
it sounds great, and then the message, the message is really wonderful and timely and needed. I don't
yeah,
know if it's going to cut through the noise for the next couple of weeks of what's going on, and
right,
we had a chat about that. We don't want to be insensitive and try to push
right,
something that people aren't ready to hear right now. That
sure,
that would be insensitive. So,
right. Yeah,
we're gonna
absolutely. And but at the same times, it serves as like that stark reminder that the atrocities that are happening over in the Middle East, the things that are happening to those people there, we can't fathom. We can't even
no,
fathom that
no,
happening here, and God forbid something like that ever does. But just yet another reason to be so humbled and grateful for where we are, and the
totally.
safeties and the securities that we're afforded, because what's happening there is unimaginable. I can barely talk about it without crying. So
Yeah,
it
it's tough.
is,
And you know, just like 9/11, you know, if you're from the Northeast, you've been up, you know, you've probably been in the trade towers before
right,
they were hit, right?
right.
So there's a little different connection when you saw what happened on 9/11. And you know, we played Israel several times now, and
Hmm.
it's absolutely beautiful. And a lot of people I talk to are like, "Aren't you scared of going to Israel?" No, it's
Yeah.
beautiful. The people are beautiful, and you know, it's right on the beach there in Tel Aviv. Just riding
Mm.
scooters and stuff. It's just, and again, the food, the people are wonderful. They're very open, and just to picture these rockets coming down on people and the atrocities, you know, innocent people, just innocent people. It's heartbreaking.
It is. It absolutely is. And I'm glad we actually got a moment to address that and talk about it, because it's, it's on everyone's minds and hearts right now, and it's just, and it shouldn't be ignored, of course, obviously. Um, Dan, I kept you longer than I said I would, so I lied to you. I apologize for that.
You're fine.
And I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
try and keep you hanging on here for just one more quick minute, because there's one more thing I wanted to mention to everyone. As part of your musical journey and all of the things that you do, you also created a secondary band called Save the World, which is absolutely
That's right.
phenomenal. And I want to
Oh,
show quickly the album covers here. And
thank you.
there's so much great music on there, and these are your bandmates from there, right? And
Right.
just so good. And we're like,
Well,
I
thank
think
you.
oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for putting out great music. And I want everybody to go check all of these things out. And I'm gonna have to get you back on again, because we still have things to talk about. I have like questions on my board here that I wanted to ask you, but I wanted our talk to go really organically, and not,
Sure.
just like cut you off quick and go, okay, next question.
You're fine.
So that means I got to bug you to come back again. Would you come back again for me?
Absolutely would love to do it.
Awesome, awesome. And maybe next time we can I can con your wife into coming on and sitting with us too, because you two in and of yourselves, and here's the last thing I'm going to torture you with, Dan. I love the way you love your wife. I just love it. It is just so stinking cute. You guys
Well,
have
she's amazing.
just
She's
she's
amazing.
also a musician,
Right.
singer, yes?
Yep. I met her in a
Got her own
band.
band. Yeah, I mean, how badass is that? I mean, how cool.
Yep.
So cool.
We're
You
very
guys are just
lucky.
the
We're very
coolest.
lucky.
I love it. I love it. And I think you guys have a really sweet and touching, just beautiful story that I think people need to hear more stories like that, of just like good people doing really good. And I love it, love it, love it. So
Well,
I'll bug
thank
you
you.
next time for that. Get her prepared.
Yeah. All right. I'll let her know.
Good. All right. Dan Tracy, thank you so much for coming on the show. And like I said, guys, he's coming back again. Thanks again, Dan.